Update, my beautiful classmate, who looked down on me for dropping out of high school, told me one day, my husband is a Harvard grad and a department head, not like you. So I responded, well, he's unemployed starting tomorrow. Part 2. After graduating middle school, I desperately looked for a job, but there were hardly any companies willing to hire someone with just a middle school education. The only place that hired me was a machine manufacturing factory where I work now. I've always loved tinkering with machines, so I threw myself into this job. I worked during the day and attended high school at night. Balancing work and study was tough, but I managed, thanks to the encouragement from my older colleagues. They taught me the ropes at work and even treated me to lunch sometimes, treating me like their own son. Years went by as I worked, supported by everyone. After finally graduating high school, I planned to continue working at the factory as an employee, but my senior colleagues advised me otherwise. Now that you've graduated high school, try to study as much as you can, they suggested. They encouraged me to go to a technical college, telling me about scholarship programs and direct company support for employees. I was surprised and grateful for their concern, so I went to college. I chose a university department related to my company's business and gained strength by acquiring various certifications and researching specialized fields. After graduating from college, I returned to the company. A few years later, at 25, I encountered a turning point at work. I met Annie, who would become my wife. Annie was kind to everyone and had a lovely smile, and I gradually developed a fondness for her. It turned out that she was also interested in me. She asked me out on a date, and that's how our relationship began. A few years later, we happily got married and built a warm family together. Throughout such a life full of ups and downs, I had completely forgotten about being harassed in middle school. So when Sarah approached me at the venue today, I was genuinely surprised. Seeing my distressed look, Annie glanced at me worriedly. After I briefly explained the situation, Annie tightly grasped my hand. No matter what anyone says, I know you're a wonderful person, David. Let's stay confident and enjoy the company's anniversary party. Yeah, you're right. Encouraged by her supportive words, I squeezed her hand back. Thus, we decided to wait for the party to start. After exchanging greetings with everyone, the hustle and bustle finally settled down. Thinking of resting until the start time, I moved towards the wall with Annie. Oh, you're still here? There stood Sarah and her husband, whom I had just parted ways with. I was a bit surprised to bump into them so unexpectedly, but I sincerely congratulated her husband, Brandon. Brandon, I heard you're an outstanding employee getting an award today. Congratulations. But instead of responding, Brandon just looked me over as if appraising me. Is this the factory worker classmate you were talking about? He had the audacity to attend the company's anniversary party despite being a mere worker. Sarah returned his words with a bitter expression. Then, Brandon, ignoring my presence, curiously asked Sarah, but for a factory worker, he's wearing a nice suit. I'm an elite, so I'm quite particular about suits. Even if he tries hard to wear a good suit, it's ruined because he's a lowly worker. It's truly embarrassing to have someone like him as a classmate. Frowning, Sarah spat out her words, and Brandon inquired further. Embarrassing? Just imagine, he's been a factory worker since dropping out of middle school. That's 30 years of being a mere worker. Wow, really? That's unbelievable. Sarah pointed and laughed at me, and Brandon leaned back, distancing himself as if amused. They both looked down on me with obvious disdain and then glanced at the person next to me. There stood Annie, watching the two of them intently. So, this bottom-of-the-barrel worker, even though he's a dropout, managed to get married. What does your wife do? Sarah asked me, and I answered honestly, she works in the same field as me. We met at work. At that moment, Sarah and Brandon looked at each other and burst out laughing. A couple both sweating it out in the field doing menial work. Perfect match for an incompetent dropout like you. They started mocking not just me, but also my wife. I couldn't understand how they could say such awful things to my wife, a stranger to them. As I stood there, stunned, Sarah blurted out, but if I were you, I'd be too miserable to even mention working in a factory. Yeah, for an elite like me, it's unimaginable to live such a lowly life. Please stop talking like that, I retorted angrily to their cruel insults, but Sarah looked at me as if I were something dirty and turned her back. Brandon swatted me away as if swatting a fly. If we keep talking to you, people might think I'm a low-class worker like you. Could you go somewhere else, Jay? Talking to someone lowly like you might rub off on me. I was boiling with anger at such rude behavior, but as a grown-up, I couldn't just let my emotions take over and start yelling. So I tried hard to hold it in. However, Sarah seemed to mock my feelings and hurled more disdainful words. From now on, if you see us, don't come close, okay? My husband is a Harvard-educated director, way different from a lowly incompetent person like you. Her words, enjoying the harassment, brought back painful middle school memories. Back then, and even now, Sarah acted arrogantly, thinking she wouldn't be retaliated against. I felt like I heard the sound of my patience snapping inside. Well, your husband will be unemployed from tomorrow. Sarah was taken aback by my unexpected words, staring with wide eyes as I stared back expressionlessly. She laughed it off, pretending. My husband unemployed? What are you talking about? Have you lost your mind? Why would a mere factory worker like you have any power over my husband? That's because I'm the president of the company. President? For a moment, Sarah was dumbfounded, then suddenly burst into loud laughter. You, the president? Don't be silly. Are you just saying that because my husband is a Harvard-educated director and you want to one-up him? It's not a lie. Yeah, Yeah, keep your fantasies to yourself, just like in middle school, I continued seriously, but Sarah clearly didn't believe a word. Then Brandon looked back and forth between me and Annie, standing by my side, and shrugged in disbelief. Married to a husband who spouts such fantasies? She must be quite a wife. Aren't you embarrassed to stand beside such a man? After spitting out those words, Brandon and Sarah haughtily left together. As I watched their backs, I trembled with anger. The person who had harassed me so much in middle school was still treating me this way, even now as an adult. And it wasn't just me they were mocking, Annie and my workplace were included in their disdain. I couldn't stay silent any longer. As I was about to step forward in anger to call them back, a gentle hand was placed on my shoulder. Annie. I heard everything, but it's not good to reprimand them here. But I couldn't just back down, especially after they laughed at Annie. However, as I looked at her, I was taken aback by her unexpected expression. She wore a mischievous smile. I have a good idea. Hearing Annie's plan, I nodded deeply, feeling a sense of relief. When the announcement for the party start was made, we moved to our assigned seats. The event began on time, and the employees started singing the company anthem. In my peripheral vision, I saw Sarah and Brandon singing along as well. After checking with the organizers, it turned out that Brandon was indeed being recognized as an outstanding employee and, along with several other distinguished employees, was escorted to a special seat with his family. Imagining what was about to happen, I suppressed a rising chuckle after the anthem.